What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Real Estate Virgins podcast. I am your host, Jordan Brown, with co-host and fellow founder of the Real Estate Virgins podcast, John Michael Perez.
Yellow.
What's going on, man? How are you?
Doing good, just like you, dealing with Austin traffic.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, heading over here was not fun. Like, I think one thing that people, you hear a lot of great things, and realtors always say a lot of great things about Austin. My least favorite is traffic. And I've heard people from like California or like up east say like, this is nothing. It doesn't matter because I live here. And so,
well, yeah, I mean, I used to live in Houston, and the good thing about Austin is that it's not 2 hours to get from one side to the other. It's usually like 30 to 45 minutes pretty much. But here the difference is like it's very congested. I remember one time it took me 2 hours to get from one side to the other just because of the traffic. But it's like a certain time, like right at 5 o'clock. But besides that, you're good.
God, Houston traffic is so bad. Yeah. I forgot about that. I would when Katie and I were in college, I remember I would travel from Victoria up to Nacogdoches to go see her. And if I left like 30 minutes too late, I was already pissed because I just knew I was going to be sitting in prime time Houston traffic. Oh,
you know what? Speaking of traffic, I'm interrupting because Jordan got a new Tesla Y.
Let's go.
It looks awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. And the main reason is like not to be douchey about it, but like it's been a goal of mine since 2019, and I was never one to get into manifestation and like goal writing until I was hanging out with John and I saw what was working for him. And I'm still not like as strict on certain principles like that, but man, it's been a goal of mine. Katie and I have worked towards it. And it's not just me. We put ourselves in a position where we were sitting there going, we have two perfectly fine paid off cars, but F it, man, we wanted it. Like we worked our asses off to get there, and it's okay to treat yourself. And I made this post about it where it was like, I'm not doing this because I think I'm saving the planet or because I'm taking like a political stance. It's not that at all. I think it's a sick car. I wanted it. We wanted it. And it was the right time for it. So I'm stoked on it. I'm unapologetically stoked for that car. And it's
but Elon.
I know, exactly. Yeah. People in the I said, like, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it.
And then somebody literally commented, I don't have anything nice to say.
Dude, that's Brian though. He's from hockey. He's like the group hater. It's okay.
Okay. So
he's a good dude.
Good dude. Before we get into real estate, if you like or learn anything new about the Real Estate Virgins podcast, this episode, please share it with your friends. We're getting a lot of momentum right now. A lot of people are listening to the podcast, and we just want to continue that growth. So if you like what you hear, please share it with your friend.
We're relying on you guys to help us grow this. We're going to continue as long as people are listening and they're getting value out of it, which is the whole goal behind this. We're going to keep showing up and putting out content. So we're relying on you guys, like we said, and we kind of I blew past the intro. This podcast is 100% about providing value and going through stories for newer agents or agents who are looking to revamp and just absolutely take off in their business in 2023
and amplify your business.
Absolutely. That's what we're going to do. I mean, we're off to a great start this year. We've continued the momentum from 2022, and we talked about all the different things that we do to ensure that happens, right? That we continue the good trajectory of our business. And so this particular episode of the podcast is actually going to be focused solely on the buyer side of transactions. What does that process look like? What are we talking about with clients? Do we have like a formula for when you're meeting a new client and what that sounds like and what it looks like? I think a lot of agents don't have either a plan or they need some guidance as to what like we're doing, right? Like if you don't have any other example, if your coach or your team or whoever doesn't have like a set plan in place, you can feel free to copy and paste from ours. We're just going to share what works. And that's what this podcast is sharing what works.
Sharing what works. And the thing is there's so many agents right now that are failing big time, like failing. And I mean, I just heard recently 15,000 agents, some crazy number, did not pay their association dues.
It's crazy.
So that means people aren't making any money in real estate, you know, a good portion of them. And then I heard another thing that the average income is like 11 grand.
Yeah.
If you have a realtor, I mean, if you have the realtor name behind your real estate name, if you're a part of the realtor association, like 11 grand.
Yeah. That can't do a lot with that. That doesn't exactly instill confidence that that's going to be my future. Right.
I know.
But I have a question before we like dive into this. That 11 grand, like, I know that turns a lot of people off, and like people, you know, in their first year didn't sell a whole lot. Do you think that people are giving up too early, or do you think people are maybe realizing that it's not for them? Is it a combination of both? Like, I feel like you have to give your business a little bit of time to develop. I did the things that I'm doing now are the same things I was doing at the beginning, and I just didn't see the results, right? And so, but you stick with it, and I think people, you know, start to see you as the expert in your area, and they start trusting you, and you get more transactions, you build that confidence, and that shows through in your content, your posting, and your conversations.
Well, we've talked about this before, and people are so used to working a week and getting paid on Friday. And the thing is in real estate, you work months and you may not get paid.
Yeah.
You know? And so the thing is like, you got to continue to work, and there's 100 different ways to find leads in real estate, but you can't just do them for a couple of days and not see results and then try the next thing. You know what I mean? And so many agents do that.
Shiny object syndrome.
Yeah.
It's like, you gotta allow the things that you're doing to come back and reward yourself for doing those things. I mean, you just said it. You can go months on end without making a dime, and then you can go through like a 2 to 3 month period where you made people's salaries. It's kind of crazy that way.
We had a big closing last week, and
we did.
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
it was a flip of ours.
Yes,
and we sold it. And we're very happy that everyone in the transaction's happy. We probably missed out from the peak of the Austin market by about 5 weeks, which sucks. But we probably made about $70K less than what we would have if we would have hit it with the market.
But guess what? We're still going hard.
Yeah.
And we're not harping on it. Like, yeah, we could have made an extra 70 grand, but
so who cares?
Who cares? What? Now let's go to the next thing.
Yeah.
Right.
What's the next thing that's going to make up for it, or that's going to be bigger and better?
And then too many people harp on the failures. They focus too much on what's going wrong instead of what's going right. And then they lose sight of their goals and their ambitions because things aren't going right. And that's the major difference between a top producing real estate agent and an agent that's going to quit because they can't afford their association dues.
I was scrolling on Facebook last night, as most, a lot of us do. And I'm in a ton of real estate groups. I know you're in are you in Lab Code Agents? And
I think so.
And then like Real Estate Mastermind, like some of the big national ones, you get a lot of bull crap in there. And I can't help, I'm a sucker for that stuff. And just like you said, people kind of focus, they lose all this momentum focusing on these negative interactions with people. I see them post about people who are mean to them on on YouTube, or they say it like a rude comment. I know I had a section about that in the previous episode, but you can't let it stop you. You're in a momentum based business and people based business. And the more conversations you have, the more you're opening yourself up to have those negative interactions, but you just got to move on. You got to have a short-term memory and focus on the 99% of people who are actually nice to you and encouraging you and supporting you. So, but yeah, last night, this agent was saying, yeah, I'm having this situation with a family member who isn't supportive of me in real estate, and they, her son needed a house and they didn't go with me, and it hurt my feelings. And I'm like, why are you posting this? What are you hoping that everyone's just gonna be like, oh, that sucks, I'm so sorry this happened to you? like on to the next. Like that's as much tough love as that is, you have to get over it quickly and just move on. So I left a little comment on there just because everyone else seemed to just be like, oh, this is, I was like, no, move on. If they're not going to work with you, they're not going to work with you. So like,
well,
stop.
I mean, I do understand from their perspective, especially when you first get into real estate, like you spend time on these relationships and they end up using somebody else. That does hurt for sure. It does. But as you grow, you know, and the years go by and that happens multiple times, it's like, okay, on to the next one, on to the next one. I think that's like the next thing. And that's the thing that's always in my mind is on to the next one, right? Because if we're focusing on what's not working, then more things are going to not work.
Well, a lot of times it's not personal too. Like this person was a newer agent and I had a very similar situation with the first house I ever sold. They used me to locate the house and go under contract with me. It was a new build. But I didn't get the listing. Even though I killed the listing presentation, they knew me personally and knew I wasn't an agent for very long. So that, you know, trust in a big transaction like that, even though I did everything right, I didn't get the business. And I remember being hurt by that, but I didn't go on Facebook and sulk about it. It's just on to the next. Like you just have to, it's like next man up, next client up, right? So anyway, like we said, this episode is going to be very focused on the buyer process and like what we tell our buyers. So let's go ahead and get started into it. One thing that I always do, like when I get an internet lead, after you schedule to meet with them, like, do you have a process for that? Like, do you have a game plan going into a meeting with a new client?
Yeah, so I always set up a buyer consultation. I think that's one of the most important things that a lot of people skip. They'll go straight to showing houses or go to straight into showing or sending properties. But for me, it's like, hey, let's set those expectations. Let's set the groundwork, the roots of this relationship. Let's make those strong before we actually start getting into showing houses and getting into it. So basically, in that buyer consultation, I'll talk about prices, money that they're going to be spending, what they're going to be spending it on, like an appraisal, an inspection, option period, earnest money, what type of inspections that they're going to expect, as well as what they're going to expect inside the inspection. I think I just repeated myself. And important things to look for, like the roof, plumbing, foundation.
Stop focusing on the paint. Like you can paint that shit later.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I talk about that kind of stuff in the buyer consultation and just let them know like the things that happen during a transaction and then how long the transaction should last. It's just really important to have a buyer consultation as well as a listing consultation, but both setting it up, maybe get on the phone first, ask what their wants and needs are, and then say, when's a good time that we can either jump on a Zoom or we can meet in person.
That consult is so big. I mean, it's crucial because I think the impulse for new agents is I got to show them houses immediately so that like they're more inclined to go with me. Right. Well, you can burn yourself that way and they could just be using you to show houses and they could have no intention of actually using you as a their agent or their representative for the transaction. So sitting down to lay out those ground rules is huge. I mean, I have a pretty crazy story that I'm going to be telling here in a few weeks about a transaction kind of dealing with that. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel to make sure you don't miss that one. It's going to be a juicy one.
Yeah. But, I mean, and also one, you can build rapport with your client during that Zoom or that in-person meeting. And then two, asking the right questions so that later on in the transaction or in the relationship, when you're showing houses and they're like, we don't really like 2-story houses. Those are the questions that you can ask in the very first time that you have a consultation. Like, what's important to you when buying a house? Oh, well, we want a big yard because we have 3 dogs, right? I heard something really good and it was earlier today. It was like, hey, when you're first meeting up with someone, always try to build rapport. Now, what does building rapport look like? Find something that you have that's in common with them and then talk about it. So, for example, I had a client that was from Corpus Christi. Oh, we have the same area code. I grew up in Victoria, Texas, and so we're only an hour and a half away. What did you like about Corpus Christi? You know, just simple things that we have in common.
Or like sports.
Or sports.
Like a lot of people are real big fanatics about sports, or like what's going on in the area, things like that. Like, especially if it's like people here, they care about like UT football. So just ask questions. Like if they don't get hung up on it.
Why did you move here? You know, why Austin? Why Leander, Texas? Why Cedar Park? And then they'll tell you their story, and then you can start building rapport and finding things that you have in common with them and start building that connection. And then you can get into asking the real estate questions as well.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I interviewed over the phone for an opportunity to help this person move from Florida to here. So what does it look like over the phone with someone you know nothing about? And so I just asked a few questions like, you know, tell me about, you know, where you're at right now. And they said, oh, we're in Florida. We blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, cool. I said, I've only been to Florida a handful of times. I said, I used to be in a metal band actually. And we toured to Pensacola and we played at the Handlebar. I said, so that's my experience with Florida. And she was laughing because she goes, oh, wow. She goes, so your impression of Florida is the Handlebar, huh?
So she knew about that.
Yes. So it was pretty cool just because like that little shot in the dark that we were going to have something in common ended up being a talking point for both of us.
But people don't know how important what you did is. Like they don't. Finding something in common with that client at the very beginning of that relationship is so important.
It disarms them. Yes. Because you no longer feel like this total stranger. And so they have this almost like, hey, like this person has been where I live. Like that's kind of cool. Like that's maybe something that separates you from other agents. So whatever edge you can get by building rapport, and plus like you just genuinely should want to know about the people that you're helping.
Yeah. So we sort of briefly went over it, but what are the questions that you're asking during a buyer consultation?
I mean, for me, I'm asking what their goals are, right? Because I want to understand if we're going to go through this buyer consult that I'm telling you the correct information that's pertinent to what your goals are. Ooh. So are you an investor? Are you someone looking for your first house? Are you going to be here for 10 years, 20 years, 2 years? Those conversations all look different. And so I need to figure out as quickly as possible what that goal is for you so I can best help you obtain that, no matter what that is.
Yeah. One mentor told me, he said, ask them, act like they can't see, or no, not act like they are looking at their dream home. Ask them to close their eyes and to look at their dream home. What does that look like? And then you start getting a picture of what they want. And now you can start looking for properties like that. You know?
Yeah, that's cool. I know, like I also ask, I try to figure out what have you done so far, right? So where in the process are you?
Ooh, yeah.
So are you just looking? Are you just curious about what home buying is? Are you already pre-approved? Do you already have a handful of houses that you're interested in? That helps kind of facilitate what I do need to go over and what I don't.
It's pretty much like guiding them to where they need to go.
Exactly. You're trying to find out what map am I using for this client? That's it, because everyone has different maps. Some people who don't know anything about home buying is going to look a lot different than this is our 30th property. Like we're investors. We're looking for this and this. So you don't have to go over certain parts of it with them, or, you know, maybe you do. It just, you'll know what to go over and what not to.
Another thing is asking the right questions will help you when it comes to what kind of loan program they're looking at. You know, hey, how much money do you have to put total toward purchasing a house? And they're like, well, we only have $7,000. Okay, $7,000 probably won't pay for the down payment plus the closing costs. So is a USDA loan going to be sufficient for you? Now, the thing about USDA loans is that they're only in certain areas and it's a little farther out, right? And then you have first-time home buyer programs, and those are awesome, but the interest rates are a little higher, and those will pay for the down payment plus closing costs, right? But the monthly payment is going to be a little higher. And then FHA loans as well.
Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing this up too, because I know for me, my process, especially when I'm meeting with a first-time home buyer, I print out my, I have a first-time home buyer guide, basically, nice. And I bring that to the meeting with them. And so we're going to be going over kind of what the contents of that looks like. And so what I do is I take this ominous, intimidating process of home buying. To someone who doesn't know, it seems intimidating.
Oh yeah.
Right. Even to people who do know, like knowing that they're going to be all up in your business and asking about that gas card your mom got you when you were a freshman in high school. They're going to ask you about all kinds of things. So it can be intimidating. I want to take that process and make it as user-friendly, easy to understand as possible. So I have a 7 steps of home buying, and I put this in the guide.
Nice.
So like you were talking about loans, the first thing that you have to do when you're looking to get started in the buying process is secure financing. Are you going to be paying all cash? Are you lucky enough that you're going to have an all cash transaction?
Is this the same buyer consult that I use as well?
Maybe.
Or you just change it up a little bit?
Maybe.
Okay.
Well, let's discover it together. Okay. So the first thing is secure financing. Are you going to be a cash buyer or are you going to have to get a loan? Those are really your only 2 options. So, if you're a cash transaction, there's certain benefits to you as a client. You can close quicker. There's less digging into your personal finances. But when you're getting a loan, there's like John was saying, there's all different kinds of loan programs available to you. I bought my house with a USDA loan. I got a refund at closing. It was sick. And I've used USDA to get other people out in Leander, homes I think I had a client move in for $300. When it was all said and done, they cost them $300 to move into a home.
But the downside is they do have to drive a little farther out,
Yeah. USDA is cool. And it's a great program. Like I said, I utilized it. The one thing about it is that it's meant to develop more rural areas. So you're not going to get that in Austin proper, right? You're going to get that in Manor, Elgin, Jonestown, Lago Vista.
And it's easy to see if the house is going to be eligible for USDA. Just Google search USDA eligibility, and it's going to be the first one on the very top. And then type in the address on the search bar of the USDA eligibility website, and it'll let you know if it's eligible or not.
Yeah, very easy. I mean, and that's available not just to us, that's available to consumers as well. So if you're looking on a different website and you want to know, ask your realtor, or you can look it up yourself. Mm-hmm. How about that? Yeah. So second, after they, secure the financing, we understand what they're either pre-approved for or how much cash they have available. Then they hire a realtor. So you're there hoping that you can help guide them through steps 1 to 2 already, right? You're like, when you're presenting this, buyer's consult with them, you're selling yourself. Here's why you should work with me. And so you're really striving for that second thing. And that's going to help them understand realistic expectations. It's going to get them a feel for you, how it's going to be working with you. I even go as far as to say how many homes I like to show in a single day, right? Because I don't want someone who's like, hey, I've got 10 homes, let's go look, right? Because that's going to not be as good of an experience for them. And if they're a new home buyer, they don't know that. But after about home 6, you start like kind of mixing details. The door from, house 2 that you liked, was that house 2 or was that house 4? Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure that you're not overwhelming them with information. Anyway, so step 2, they hire a realtor. Hopefully it's you. You do a good job and you earn the business. So then step 3 is you begin the home search. And the reason it's important to lock down that client is a lot of them like to use Zillow. A lot of them like to use realtor.com or some other third-party site, which is fine if it's a guide, but you really want them on your portal. And the reason that's important is not only is it the best experience for them, because they're getting information directly from your local MLS that's updated in real time as quickly as possible. But you're getting the insights, you're getting the analytics as far as like what they're looking at. You're getting to see what their favorites are. You're getting to see if there's like a trend with, maybe their search area is actually a little more expansive than what they thought. I had a client tell me I got to be in Cedar Park or Leander. And then I started noticing that, they would have favorites that were in Round Rock. And so I'd be like, hey, hey, I saw in your portal that you favorited some Round Rock houses. What's up? And they're like, oh, well, if the right house is out there.
Yeah.
And that's how you learn more information, where if they're on Zillow and you're not getting any of that info, or realtor.com, and you're not getting updated with that, then you're missing out on a key piece of the analytics.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because we're using this whole consultation as asking the right questions so that now we know, oh yeah, Round Rock might be a good option as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so step 4 is you start, I have a question for you before we move on to step 4. When do you make people sign a buyer's rep agreement?
Ooh, this is a spicy question.
It's a loaded question.
This is a loaded question.
Because it's different.
So when I was taking my classes to get my real estate license, everyone told me to get it before we start showing houses. And then when I joined the first brokers that I was a part of, they said, get it signed before you start showing houses. But I'm not going to lie, over the years, I started showing houses first, making sure that we had a great rapport. I wasn't going to waste my time with people that weren't 100% interested in me already. So when I wrote up the offer, I would send the buyer's rep as well. Now, that's a little different than most people, I know. But
there's a risk that comes with that.
Yeah,
like is. You're risking that. Let's say you show them houses for 2 days in a row. And then they either disappear and they stop talking to you, or all of a sudden, oh yeah, my cousin's a realtor.
Yeah,
I forgot my cousin's a realtor.
Yeah.
Like
there is a risk with that for sure.
But I like that approach. I like that you're making sure it's also going to be like a mutually beneficial relationship before locking them into something. And for me, if I know the person, I'm the exact same way. I don't have them sign until we're making an offer. I'm going based on the trust that we have from an existing relationship.
Yeah.
Before I'm going to lock you into something or make you feel like I locked you into something.
That one transaction that you had recent that we're going to be talking about in a few weeks, what did you do in that situation?
So I did the exact same thing. I didn't have them sign until we were making an offer or going under contract. Now, this transaction that you'll hear about is the reason that I'm going to be switching how I do things.
Okay.
Because I think that there was...
For everyone or just...
I think for people I don't know.
I would say, yeah.
It's probably a good rule of thumb that, like, if you know them and you trust them, like, you can feel free to not have to, like, have them sign a buyer's rep until you're making an offer. Yep. But if you don't know them and you don't have that rapport and they're, if you have kind of an off feeling about how things might go, trust your gut. And lock it up.
Yeah.
Because you can absolutely get burned. And luckily, I did not get burned on this one, but it very easily could have happened.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway.
So 4th, make an offer.
Yes. So number 4 is to make an offer. So this is where you're going to be going over the terms with your buyers, because there's so much more to it than just the closing, like what your asking price is.
Yeah.
In the minds of your buyers, they may not know what an option period is. They don't know what earnest money goes towards. Like, this is where you're sitting there explaining, like, showing your expertise.
Yeah.
This is where you're like, hey, this is why you hired me.
I know, and a lot of times I ask, hey, so have you been through the buying process before? Just so that I can sort of get a temperature of where they've been and what they've done. And if they said no, then I'll just go through the entire thing. Or if they say yes, I'll go through the entire thing again and say, you may know this already, but I'm just going to go do a quick run through of it. And yeah.
Things can also vary by region. Like, for example, if there's someone moving from Georgia, like, that may be different, or New York, that may do things differently here in Texas than they do up there. And they absolutely do things different.
100%. I was selling a house in Victoria, Texas, our hometown, and everything across the board, all earnest money was $1,000.
Flat?
Yeah, flat.
Interesting.
Every offer was $1,000 earnest money. Every every option period was about $100, similar.
Wow.
Yeah. And then everybody submitted offers that were like 14-day option periods, right? And that was during the the crazy time.
That's so wild because it's so different than what we were going through.
Yeah, I know.
So even in the same state, just 2 or 3 hours away, things could be completely different.
Yeah.
So you can't
they have different
assume
norms.
So you can't assume that everyone has had the same or that they know based on prior experience because they may be new to the area. And again, that's where you come in as the local expert.
I think that's why it's so important to hire a local expert, because there's agents that will sell houses in different cities, but they don't know the area, the norms, and all that, you know.
It's the same thing with lenders. Like why? Like I hate when I don't hate. Sorry, you
Just like-
clients. You're welcome to use whoever you want. But if you're coming at me with like, hey, we got pre-approved through Rocket Mortgage, I'm immediately like,
Yeah.
because like I prefer for you to have a better experience with someone who knows your actual local market, who lives here, who closes here all the time. And, you know, if there's any issues with appraisal or anything like that, like you have someone who understands this market on a very daily basis in your corner.
I've worked with big mortgage companies, and it seems like I'd have to talk to 5 people before I talk to the actual person that's making the decision. And so I have a client that's like, hey man, what do I do in this situation? Let me ask the lender real quick, or asking the lender the right questions. But then I talk to the front desk, the manager, the regional manager, and and before they can even talk to the underwriter. But when you talk to when you work with a local lender, they have in-house underwriting, and so you can get direct answers almost instantly. And that's just so important for clients, especially if the house is in a local area and the market's different from any other market. They can take those differences and make the right decision.
Yeah, because during the transaction, you may need to talk to your lender quite a bit, you know, to get a feel of where you're at or what information they need. And so whenever you're dealing with deadlines and time sensitive stuff, it's important that when you call, that lender answers, and it's not, operator, how can I direct your call? Do you know your party's extension? And you're like, no. And they're like, okay, well, it's so different. It's just the smoother things can go, and like the less people in between you and the direct person you need to talk to, the better.
Yeah.
So anyway, so 4th is you're making an offer. Again, this is your time to shine as the expert. This is where you're putting up the initial terms that are, you know, what your buyer is comfortable with. And you're, you know, in this market, in this day and age right now, this kind of shifting buyer's market that we're in, you can be a little aggressive. You know, you can ask for a few thousand, 10,000. I mean, I just went under contract 31,000 below.
Yeah.
You know, so feel free to make those offers, make sure your client's on board, and hash out the small details with them. And I'll give you this pro tip. Go over the contract with them. Go over the offer with your client every single time. Do not assume that they know anything about it.
Ooh, I need to do that more.
It's just like again, this whole situation that I just went through transformed the way that I think about new clients. I think of them now more as, even if they think that they know, they don't.
Yeah.
Or it's possible that they don't.
Yeah.
And so I still need to do my job of educating them and being, you know, performing at a high level by educating them on every step of the process. And that includes the offer. Mm-hmm. So now, even if I know you, I'm going to go over the offer from start to finish with you.
Do you have any advice when it comes to representing a client on a new build? Because as agents, I feel like we don't have to do as much when it comes to new builds, but our value is 1, finding the right property, 2, making sure everything goes smoothly, 3, getting the information to the client, and a lot of times there might be delays in communication, and you got to figure that out. Do you have any value when it comes to that, or any advice?
Yeah. I mean, I would say when it comes to new builds, you're right. It's a lot more hands off of a process once you're under contract. I think you don't forget about your client. That's it. There's still deadlines. there's still important dates to remember. And the more that you can help them stay on top of that and, you know, getting you still have to get your earnest and option money in.
Yeah.
You still have to do a final walkthrough. You still need to make sure that, like, do you want to get a third party inspection?
Yeah.
All these things are really important. And it's not like the builder is going to sit there and go, hey, do you want that third party inspection? Like they want to close that as soon as possible. They're not acting on your behalf, like in your favor, if that makes sense. They're just trying to get it closed and move on. Otherwise, the houses after inspection would be perfect, and usually they're not.
Yep.
And so that's where you can come in.
You'd be surprised. New builders, sometimes they skip steps. And that's why it's so important to get a third-party inspection, somebody that's not connected to them in any way, shape, or form, that can give you a unbiased opinion on what's going on with the house. Because even with new builds, especially within the last couple of years, things go wrong.
Yeah. They either like sped up the process, or like they skip over certain things because they're just trying to like close out this neighborhood, or, you know, the labor's cheaper. Like everyone's trying to offset costs of increased, labor and materials. So you need to make sure that you're still protecting your client. And that's really all it is like, as long as you are still active in the transaction, you're there to support them, you're there to answer questions when they have them. That's really all like they can ask from you, right? Like, the negotiation part is typically done. Like there's not a lot of room for that with new builds. So, what about you? Do you have anything to add to that as far as like what you would do for clients in a new build?
With new builds, somewhere about halfway between the transaction, I will send them information about the immediate area, just new stuff, maybe send them some information about the amenity center, send them information about, you know, utilities, stuff like that. And then also, I will call the sales rep and continually ask them about updates, to give us updates, because sometimes they get busy too and they'll forget about sending us updates. And then another cool tip is that if I'm out showing properties to other clients and it just so happens I have a house that's under contract in that same area, I will stop by the property, take a quick picture and say, hey, your house is going along really good. This is what it looks like right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's other things you can do too. Like you can do video tours of the property to just keep them updated, especially if it's nearby. So having that positive relationship with like the sale, like everyone's on the same team. That's the other part of this is like the sales rep there. They want to work with us to make sure that we're happy and get things closed. You're there to represent your client, make sure that the builder is doing their part and holding up, you know, if we're about to fork out X amount of money, like you're going to give us an X amount of money product. So you're holding them to the standard.
You're buying a new build.
Yeah. So it should come perfect.
Yeah.
So anyway, step 5 in this 7-step process of buying houses, you are officially under contract. So all the terms have been agreed upon by both parties. You have an executed agreement, and now now is the crunch time for getting your earnest and your option money in. And so making sure that your clients understand that earnest and option gets credited at closing. Like that's another important thing is a lot of times they don't know what happens with that money. So make sure they understand, you know, if you back out within your option period, you're going to get this back, but you're not going to get this.
Yeah. A lot of clients are going to be like, hey, so what next? And then pretty much I'll tell them, hey, we're going to need to turn in earnest money within, I think it's 48, 72 hours. And
yeah, depending on like if it's a holiday or a weekend.
Yep.
Yeah, 2 days.
And then also we're going to get an inspection scheduled as soon as possible because we want enough time to be able to look at what's wrong, look what needs to be fixed, and still have time to negotiate. And so at that time, I will send my clients a couple of options for inspectors so that it's on them to pick the inspector. And then also, I do a little bit more work, and I will call these inspectors, and usually the one with the better price, I'll let the client know, hey, this one is $50, $75 cheaper, just to let you know.
Yeah. And so that's step 6, right? So things start to like really roll after you go under contract.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is like, here's a step, but they all kind of work together. So step 6 is, again, you get your inspection done, your appraiser goes out there, and you do your final negotiations within your option option period. So that's your time where you want to get your inspector out there as quickly as possible. If you have like a 7-day option period, you want as much time to be able to go back and forth on the negotiations to hash that out as possible. If they're not going out there till day 6, you are backing yourself into a corner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I know. And the thing is, agents, this is very important, is to not wait until the last day to get repairs requested, because that's going to be a very bad situation for your clients, because you never know who's on the other side of that transaction, and they may just say no. And then now your client has to make a decision within 30 minutes as to whether or not they want to buy that house or not.
Yeah. So this, again, act with urgency. Time is absolutely of the essence.
Absolutely.
If there's anything that I took away from the training and like the online courses and all that, is that time is so important in real estate.
Yeah.
And the quicker that you act, the better it is for your client, and you put them in a better position to make an informed decision and not a panicked decision.
100%.
So lastly, the very last 7th step of this process is you close on the home. So that means that you are, as the agent, you remind them, hey, we're at this place at this time. Make sure you bring a valid government ID, most commonly a driver's license, because by the time that you go to the closing table, you've probably already told them this, like, hey, like when you close on the house, like I know that's in my buyer's presentation is, hey, here's what closing looks like. You bring your driver's license. It's been probably 30 days since they heard that. And so you need to remind them of that. Otherwise, you're not going to close.
What's another thing you need to remind them not to do before they close?
Take out any new lines of credit. Don't buy that car to celebrate, things like that. You want to make sure that you are the picture that you painted when you got approved is the same picture that you're doing at closing.
100%.
Because otherwise you can absolutely jeopardize that transaction.
And lose a lot of money. Your earnest money, your option money. If you get a new car and celebrate, you're not going to be able to buy that house anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I had to wait until, when we were looking at loans to refi, I held off from applying for the Tesla and everything, because I was like, I can't do that. I don't want, this new debt to appear on my report. I want to close this out.
Yeah. Also, don't quit your job.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Because I've had clients quit their job and be like, oh, no worries. I'm getting another job in a couple of weeks. It's like, well, we can't continue this transaction until you get that new job. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you've just got to be diligent on and like get ahead of it. Like what are the possible scenarios that are going to ruin this transaction, and make sure you tell them not to do that.
We're giving you guys a lot of information. So if you need to go back and listen to this again, please do, because it's important, especially when you're representing buyers.
Yeah. And a lot of this is just coming from a place of experience.
Yeah.
A lot of this stuff you don't think about until it happens.
100%.
And so if we can help you, identify these potential issues with your future clients, like we want to save you that heartache of, showing up to the closing table and now, they don't have their driver's license. It's 4:30. They can't get it. So they have to push closing. But now the sellers are like, ooh, well, like the market shifted, like we could get better. So like
and then the buyer buys a car.
Yeah. Like there's just so many things. Like, it's funny because whenever I call my mom and I'll tell her about like things that are going on with my real estate career, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I've got one under contract, and she's more excited than I am about it. And I'm like, I don't get excited about going on. I get like this much excited whenever I go under contract, but I get, really excited when it closes. Because there's so much stuff that can go wrong that will prevent you from closing, and you won't be excited anymore.
I get more excited when option period's over. I'm like, okay, now
I can kind of start to smile a little bit.
Okay, so after you close, is there anything, as a real estate agent, is there anything that you do for the client?
Absolutely. So especially if it's a first-time home buyer, they probably don't know what a homestead exemption is.
Oh.
And so what I do is I always make it a point to say, at the closing table, hey, this is your primary residence. This, qualifies as because if it's an investment, it doesn't qualify. It's not protected by your homestead exemption. So keep that in mind. If you're using this as an investment property, you can't claim that for, homestead protection against taxes. But if it's your primary residence, your homestead exemption prevents your taxes from, skyrocketing year over year. And so they won't remember that. And so I write them a thank you letter within a week of them moving into the house, just as a kind of a, hey, thank you again so much. It was a pleasure to help you out. So excited for you. And then within a month after closing, I'll send them a reminder about their homestead exemption. I'll send them the county website that applies to them. I'll remind them again why it's important that they do this, and kind of a time frame of when I think, when they should do it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
What about you?
For the most part, not every single transaction, but for the most part, I will do the homestead exemption. I will do, actually every transaction I'll do the homestead exemption. And then I will try to look on their personal Facebook page, if they have one, and see what they're interested in, and try to get a closing gift that's related to what their interests are. So like if they like The Office, or if they like a certain band, or like if they have dogs, then I'll get something like that for them. Just something that's a little more personal so that they'll remember me by it. I did do it a couple times, was get a canvas of a picture of their house, and then I took it on Fiverr.com, and you can get an artist to do like a water brush painting, and then you can print out a canvas and give it to them, and it looks awesome. That's a great gift.
I've done that a couple of times too. Yeah, it's awesome. Whether it be like their new house, or like a family picture or something, like something cool that's, like almost like a piece of art that they can hang in the house, and every time they look at it, they're gonna think of you.
Yeah.
I do cutting boards a lot. A lot of people are real big into, or a lot of my clients have been into cooking, and like the kitchen's kind of the heart of the home. And so if I can give them something that they use on a regular basis, then, they may remember me for that.
That's awesome. I was at a mastermind this morning, and this transaction coordinator was a guest. She was talking about how they automate the closing gift. So that's just a part of their process. So that's
awesome.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Another really cool thing that John has done, which I want to do, is Cameo. Cameo is really cool. So if you don't know what that is, you can get like celebrities or actors, band members. You did for Dave Matthews Band, right?
Yes.
And so he got the guitarist,
the violinist.
So one of his clients was really into the Dave Matthews Band, and he got the violinist to make a video on Cameo for his clients. Think about how excited they were to see one of the members of their favorite band talking directly to them about buying a house.
Yeah.
Pretty sick. So do you think they're going to work with anyone else? Hell no.
Yeah, we've already looked at other houses with them as well, which is really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I got a quick question though. When it comes to, you close on the deal, or before you even close on the deal, do you offer commissions to make the deal happen, or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
No. If it's like, I don't know, if it's a family member or something, and if it's a listing, like I might help them on that side. That's probably my only exception, because in no other job, like how would you feel in any other job if someone came up and asked for a part of your paycheck? Mm-hmm. It's kind of a slap in the face that, like, there's more to what we do than just like what you see in the transaction.
Yeah.
We're saying the reason that your process was so smooth, or as smooth as it was, is because of our expertise. It's what we're doing outside of the transaction. We're keeping ourselves, versed in the market, and there's a lot of unpaid things that we do. And again, we don't know where our next paycheck's going to come from. Mm-hmm. And if the only reason you're working with an agent is because you're going to get a kickback, kick rocks. I don't want to work with you anyway.
Yeah.
Like that's just my take on it.
Yeah.
Do you have a rule for that?
So yeah, very similar. I do not lead with discounts. There's only two reasons why I would give a discount. And one would be if they're part of some type of exclusive offer or group that I'm a part of. And I say, hey, since you're a part of the dad's group, I'm going to give a little bit of kickback, right? Now it makes them feel special, and they're going to tell other people in the dad's group, right? And so, I mean, on average, it costs the average real estate agent spends, I think it's $2,400 for a lead, right? And so for me, if I give them $1,000 kickback for this exclusivity discount because they're a part of this group, I don't lead with it, right? I do not lead with it, but if I feel like there's any tension or anything like that, I will offer it. And then the second one is if it's the deciding factor of closing a deal or not.
That's what. Okay, so if that wasn't yours, that was going to be my kind of my kicker. There was I've never been in the situation where it was, hey, if you don't do something about your commission, we're going to lose this deal. But if it came down to that, I probably would.
There's 3 people that you can talk to make a deal happen. That is 1, yourself, right? So if you need to wiggle a little money in, and the lender as well, they'll be able to wiggle a little money too. And then also the other side. So whether it be the buyer or the seller, right? That is the very, very, very last option, right?
Yeah.
And so I've had instances where my buyer client was during option period, and they said, we're not budging at all. We're at 610, and the seller was like, 615 is the lowest we can go. Like, we're not going any lower. This was during the market where it was really, really hot. And so I'm not going to lose. So 80% of something is better than 0% of nothing. And so you really do have to think back. Okay.
I think you switch your number. I understand what you're saying. So
80,
it's like having 50% of a watermelon is better than 100% of a grape.
Yeah. And so, I'm gonna put $1,500. I'm gonna ask the lender to put up $1,500, and I'm gonna ask the other side to put $1,500 so that we can figure out a solution to get it closed. Now, that is a very last resort, and I fight it, but I'm not gonna lose out on a deal because of that.
Yeah, and I mean, if you start setting the precedent that you're just going to give out stuff like that's also, I don't want referrals that way. I don't want referrals of, oh yeah, Jordan gave me this kickback, so you should work with him for that. Like, I don't want that to be why people want to work with me. Discount agents give discount service. Yeah. Typically. I mean, you can ask any of my clients or John's clients. When you call me, I'm going to answer. I'm going to find out whatever the information is that you're seeking. I'm going to get it to you in a timely manner, and I'm going to service you at a very high level. You cannot say the same for discount realtors. You may only be able to reach them from 8 to 5, 9 to 5. I answer questions all the time. I answer day and night, midnight if I'm up. Like, it doesn't matter. If my clients reach out to me, and that's part of why I don't give out discounts, because I'm not a discount realtor.
That makes you valuable. And you have to value yourself to a certain level. You have to set that precedent of standard. And so when you discount yourself, you're lowering that value.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we gave you so much information on this podcast, very tactical, very strategical, and actually things that you need to do on every single buyer that you represent.
This was a very practical one.
Yeah.
This is very real life when you're actually doing real estate stuff, what it looks like.
Yeah.
So we hope that you found it useful. I know it'll save you some trouble. I hope that some of the things you heard will, again, prevent some heartache for you, or help you set a better precedent for your clients. Let
us be the people that have experienced the heartache so that you can learn from our heartache and not experience it.
Yeah, exactly. So again, like John said earlier, if you learned anything in this podcast, please like us, comment, give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. Write us a review on Spotify, on Apple Music. It helps us. We want to know if this information is useful to you. And, again, it helps us. It helps us keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so share it with a fellow realtor or someone who's just interested in what's going on in real estate. We want to be a resource for you guys. So,
one quick thing, I'm going to be doing a class on the end of February. The date hasn't been set, but I know it's going to be 28th, 29th, and it's going to be 13 ways to make money in real estate. And usually these classes, they sell out and it's standing room only, but just be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely. More value to be provided. Keep an eye out for it if you're here in the Austin area. Anything else, man?
Nope, that's it.
All right, guys. Hey, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you on the next one.